our latest Wytpod. I'm Stephen Blaine, your host with White Labs, an e-commerce marketing agency. Today's guest is Chuck. Chuck, feel free to introduce yourself and let our viewers know a little bit more about yourself.
Hi, I'm Chuck Knerr, and I'm the founder of Spun N Rich. It's a toy company. We make a product called Whirly Go Round. It's an indoor thrill ride. And as with anything, of course, pictures worth 1,000 words, or maybe a video is even better. This will give you an idea of what a Whirly Go Round is and why we call it an indoor thrill ride. Kids just have a blast. And there's no motor, there's no batteries, there's nothing electrical. That's entirely kid-powered propulsion there. They can go as fast and as long as they want.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What inspired you to create this brand, Chuck?
Well, it's called Spun N Rich. That's named after Spud Malin and my dad, Rich Knerr. They founded Whammo, which was a toy company back in the last century that I'm sure some older viewers would remember. Toys like hula hoop, slip and slide, frisbee, and Whirly Go Round actually dates back to 1961. They created a prototype that did this same action, and of course, I was recruited to test it, and I loved it. But it was kind of dangerous because it was made out of steel and steel legs, and you could get tangled up in it and hurt. So it was so much fun. I never forgot it. But they stopped working on it because that was the summer that Slip and Slide hit the market, and they had their hands full with that. So they never pursued it any further, but I never forgot about it.
Awesome. Well, who is your target audience for this?
Well, it's parents and grandparents of kids that are between the ages of 4 and 8, although that girl you saw there is 3 years old. So it's really not a weight restriction. It's a size length, height restriction for who can fit onto that small seat. In fact, I have a lot of adults ask about doing it, but the fascinating thing is spinning is actually good for young brains. The stimulation of the inner ear, the vestibular stimulation, actually helps create connections and promote development in young brains. And that's why kids like spinning. That's why they naturally are spinning by themselves, in chairs or down hills or just standing and spinning. It's actually good for them. And that's actually why adults don't like to spin, because our brains can't handle it. And in fact, I tested myself some of the first prototypes I made, and I can tell you it doesn't feel like it did when I was a kid.
What's the youngest someone could be? I have a 2-year-old daughter who seems like what's the youngest you could go?
Oh, 3 probably.
3, yeah, okay.
It's just a matter of the way there's a lot of physics involved in why it works, you've got to have enough mass to get it going and be able to hit the connection points of your hands and your feet.
Awesome. Do you have any competitors in the same space at all?
No, nobody's foolish enough to join us in this space. No, it's a great product, but it's pretty costly because of the way it has to be made. That's one of our issues with it. It's made it as kind of an heirloom product. I noticed I noticed that in one of my daughters, she wanted me to, she told me when she was about 10 or 11 that she wanted me to save this toy for her. And don't throw it away, Dad, because I want this so my kids can play with it.
Awesome.
And I thought, isn't that interesting? She loves the toy so much. She wants her kids to have the same experience she had. And I realized it's kind of the Disneyland effect. Why Disneyland remains popular from generation to generation is kids that grow up and have their own kids want their kids to experience that feeling of awe when they walk through the gates at Disneyland and see this wonderland. It's really sweet that you want to share what you knew, the joy you had as a child, with your children.
Awesome, that's great.
It's very well made, and it'll last enough to be handed down maybe to their own kids and beyond. But that makes it more costly. So that's one of our challenges.
Well, speaking of challenges, most of our listeners are entrepreneurs and, have an e-commerce store like yourself. What are some challenges that you've had, and how have you overcome them?
Well, first off, there really isn't enough margin in the product to be able to use retail. which
Gotcha.
is fine because I think that's one of the things that's really kind of kinked the toy industry, is that retail tends to drive the price. They're really the 800-pound gorilla compared to manufacturers. Even for companies like Hasbro and Mattel, the retailer tells them what price the toy, what they're going to put the price at for that toy, and then you have to build the product to that price. And so it tends to for toys that have been around. Now this doesn't apply to new toys, and that's really what kind of I think hurt Whammo as a company. Dad and
Hmm.
Spud sold it in '82, and since then it's had I think at least 5 owners. But there's really been no product innovation. When you've got new products that kids want, where they pester their parents to get for them, that
Yeah.
drives store traffic, and
Uh-huh.
that's what retailers want. But if you don't have that hot toy, then you become a commodity, and they start telling you what the price is going to be. I mean, slip and slides originally sold for $5.98 in 1961. Now that would be about $60 today, pretty significant. But today, slip and slides retail for like $9.88 or maybe $14.88 at the most,
Hmm.
and that's because they had to shrink the product down. Whereas
Yep.
they started out being 25 feet long and 3.5 feet wide, they're now like a Band-Aid on the lawn compared to
Yep.
that. So it really hurts the industry when the retail has so much leverage. So innovation is the only way out of that, and that's unfortunately though this our product though really has to stay direct to consumer because of the cost level. And when I first developed it, that was one of the challenges right off the bat was how do I take this product that's enormously fun but inherently dangerous because of the way they constructed the first prototype. I originally designed a similar design but out of plastic because well that's what would be most economical.
Yeah.
But to make it out of plastic requires an incredible investment in tooling and then big product runs. Without you've got to have some massive investment behind that to do it.
Hmm.
I wanted to start small, kind of like Dad and Spud started in my grandmother's garage, making slingshots and selling a mail order, which was the precursor to the internet, really. In terms of how the business is structured, you get the money up front. You get a dollar bill in an envelope. Remember when people were trustworthy enough to send cash through the mail? That seems crazy today,
Yeah.
but you got the money up front, and so you built them and shipped them. And I wanted to start on a kind of on a cash basis like that. So we've started small, but then the challenge in that is I ended up making it out of wood. But to get hardwood in these dimensions, it'd be just prohibitively expensive. So I eventually settled on bamboo, which, as it turns out, I didn't realize this when I started, but bamboo is actually 3 times harder than oak. So it's incredibly durable. But the only place where they really have the technology and the experience to make uh, planks like this out of bamboo is in China. So we had to source the materials there. And that created a whole nother set of challenges, especially, after COVID and the way shipping got so expensive. So that's another thing that drives the price on this. But the upside is the product is just enormously popular with kids. The people that have bought them report back that their kids are still on them every day a year later. So
Yeah.
it's really gratifying.
That's amazing. Where are you selling? Just in the United States?
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yes, just in the continental U.S. because again, shipping it weighs 35 pounds,
Okay.
and it's just a big heavy box to ship.
Hmm. What are some successful things you've done to promote the brand?
Well, of course, just like with hula hoop, where my mom and dad and Spud and Susie went to parks around Southern California and demonstrated the hula hoop. That's what they were big on. Was you've got to demonstrate to sell. So it really takes seeing a kid on this in person in front of people, and it draws a crowd. But then again, as you can see from
Uh-huh.
the video is very effective in conveying that. That's there's 2 things I really learned from Dad and Spud. One was marketing, and the other was product development. Their toys really created. They looked for toys that would create a great TV commercial. where the fun just kind of jumped off the screen. And this does with whirly go round. You can see that just looks crazy. How is that possible? And that's another good element of product development is that I've kind of carried over into the Spun N Rich brand is we focus on two things. One, phys-active fun, which physically active fun is where the child's part of the toy, where you've got to be active to use it, where the fun isn't pre-programmed, right? Where the child follows along with some predetermined course. This is where the child is part of the toy. And that's the other is it's phenomenal fun. And that's misspelled phenomenal with an F-U-N at the beginning.
That's great.
And that's that sense of awe, that sense of amazement. How's that possible? It defies your expectations. That was the great thing about their toys. There was always that aspect of phenomenal fun where, you knew what a ball was, but when you bounced a super ball, it was just, wow, you didn't expect that.
Yeah.
How's that happening? And it's the same with the spinning of the whirly go round. It's hard to communicate how to do it. It's kind of like I learned to play the harmonica once, and a friend told me, I was asking him tell me how to do it. And he says, I can't tell you. You just have to feel it for yourself. And he was right. You do get that in a very short amount of time. And it's the same with the kids. They sit down on it and they can, as they try it, they can feel what's making it start to go. And then they continue with more of that. And pretty soon they're going like a top. And that gives them, one of the great things is gives them this sense of accomplishment. They learned a skill. And look, the grown-ups can't even do this.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's an exhilarating, thrilling sensation they get from it. What else can a 3 or 4-year-old kid do that is so wildly fun? I mean, it's like driving a car at high speed. I mean, they can't even, ride a two-wheeler yet. They can make this thing spin like mad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, to give kids that sense of fun, I don't know. I guess I got that from Dad and Spud. It's just really gratifying. It drives you.
100%. So Chuck, what's your future plan for yourself and the brand?
Well, to figure out what works, and if we can get a toehold, I've got a whole bunch more products ready to go. So all the way from infants to adults, because that's the funny thing. Adults all look at this and they want, do you have one my size? And I tell them why it just won't work. I mean, I suppose we could make one for fraternities, and call it the spin and spew.
Yeah, definitely could.
But adults are still kids. I mean, if you can keep that sense of childlike fun, you're ahead of the game and not lose that. And so adults still want to have fun. And we've got some toys that I think can like this, but a different thrill.
Awesome. You don't have to go into too many details, but I get it.
Yeah. Sure.
Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know about yourself or where they go around?
Well, one thing I've learned from this that is kind of surprising, coming from marketing, is that if you're creating a small brand with where you don't have enormous amounts of capital to throw at the online space for marketing, it's really a challenge, I've found. And I'd love to get input from anybody who's solved this puzzle with small amounts of money. Online ads, on whether it's YouTube or Google or Facebook, I've found that without having enough money to go long term with large amounts of spending, their algorithms aren't able to learn how to profitably hit the right people. So I've just poured a lot of money out on online advertising that went to nothing. It goes like this. It'll get an enormous amount of clicks, views of the videos, which is great because the video is what sells it, aimed at the target demos. But when you go back into it and you look at the time spent on each page or the time spent on the website, period. I remember one YouTube campaign, we got just thousands of views. And the average time spent on our website was 2 seconds. Now, if you're watching that video and you're interested enough to want to go to the website, you're going to spend more than 2 seconds because it's intriguing.
Yeah.
So that told me it was machine traffic. The views are machine traffic.
Yeah.
Trips to the website.
It wasn't. It was too much. That's too high of a bounce rate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that was over all the thousands of views, 2 seconds. So some might have been longer. There might have been some real ones. Enormous majority were machine traffic. So it's if you advertise on radio or TV, the ad's running because if you're in the market, you hear the ad, you see the ad, it's running. But in online advertising, you're not going to see your ad because you're not in that target audience, and they're all served one at a time to people. So you're just it's really an issue of credibility and for the industry. And now I'm a skeptic.
Gotcha. Well, Chuck, I appreciate you coming on the podcast, and thank you for your time and learning more about Whirling Around yourself.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch, Stephen.
Thank you, Chuck.
Great to meet you.
Definitely.